Hey everyone! If you are joining us online for our stream right now, we're going to be recording an episode of our podcast for this week. So say hi in the chat if you join us. We'll get to your chats if it has something to do with our topic. We'll add it in, and you can join in with the chat and basically the episode of the podcast, or afterwards we'll answer some of those questions. But again, thank you. We have some people logging in now. We're just recording an episode of the podcast. We haven't started yet, so we're just kind of hanging out for a sec. This is the first time we've actually recorded an episode of the podcast for people to watch us.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun. Cody's like, "Do you want to?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." After a week of nothing, it's been a very, very long week.
Yeah, it has. I mean, y'all have had we're going to get to it in the episode, but yeah,
yeah,
y'all have had a tough time in Texas. This weekend here with me hasn't been greatest. So yeah, a lot happening. We'll just wait and see if anybody else wants to join us for a sec. And then we will get started.
Cody, I've missed you though. Oh my gosh,
I know.
I couldn't really text for days because I had power, but it was funny because I could kind of tell what was going on in your house because I would get responses from you and Gabe at the same time. So I was like,
I mean, yeah, that kind of how I guess it works.
and
Is
that's
either
weird.
we're either watching TV and there's a break, we're eating and there's a break, or we're working outside and then we've come in or something.
Right. So it's just kind of like I would get messages at the same time, and I'm like, this is weird. And I mean, in a good way.
Yeah. Trying to see what's going on. Okay. I was trying to see if I could open up a new little app to use, but this computer is not working. Yeah, before this we were getting all set up and we were having a little technical difficulties. But now things look great.
Yeah, my internet on my laptop died. I'm like, really?
I see your network connection right now. Let's see. It's showing me it is 10 out of 10 score. Oh, we have more viewers. So, hey, welcome. This is the first time we're doing a live recording of a podcast episode. So you get to see us basically how we make this episode. So we'll pause between things because that's where breaks go. Because yay, we have an ad that we can throw in there.
Yeah. I thought it'd be really. I'd love to do like a parody of one, like some completely ridiculous. Help the starving children of Beverly Hills. These A-list celebrities.
I mean, you can do a live commercial for us when we get there. Last night we were watching Letterkenny. Have you watched Letterkenny?
No,
It's on
but
Hulu.
The only commercial I think I could probably do, I literally would look like a Sarah McLachlan commercial, right? Like as the other day, like it was
You
bad.
did.
Did you see the before and after?
Yeah. Yeah, you sent that to me. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, when I tell people like how bad I felt, I don't think people hear it because I'm still me. Like I don't really, I'm just really used to those situations. I've been there before and I know what to do. So you just kind of, my instinct is just going to take over, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So the reason for that is, so since we're recording live, we don't necessarily plan, we don't have a script or anything we use, but when we get to the actual, we have some scripting we use to open and close, make sure we hit the points we want to hit. But when it comes to the actual subject matter, we formatted it a little more for season 2. Season 1, we just kind of rolled with it because we wanted to see what the other was like. Because remember, we've not met in person. We've never sat in an office and said, okay, we're going to spend an 8-hour day building what we want to build, work it out, hammer the details. We just were like, okay, well, here's space for each of us. There's enough room for both of us. Let's just do it. And we'll see what pans out. And some days, it was exciting because it was like, oh, Cody's like, okay, so what's the topic today? And then we're like literally rolling, and I'm like, oh, by the way, he's like, oh God, crap.
Yeah.
But I needed his reactions to be completely genuine to me, because what if he doesn't agree with my thought, my thinking, what I do or don't like? I don't want him to have time to think of a nice way to say it. I need him to react as if he would react if we were sitting right in front of each other in person. And I'm really good at body language. So, but that's how I think that's a better way to build a better working relationship, is to get those genuine reactions. Like, I knew he wasn't going to be like, you freaking idiot. Oh my God, I can't believe how dumb you are. Like he probably just goes and complains to Justin later after the recording, like, oh my God, this guy.
Worst thing ever.
What was I thinking? Can you find any more projects for me to do so I can be like, oh no, I'm like too busy. Oh no.
Let me see. I need to see what episode this is.
Yeah, I haven't been able to update anything. So also I usually will go in and update what time we work, when we recorded, is it an idea, recorded, edited, in editing, where is it at in the process? About once a week, I usually sit down and I go through all the episodes, put them in the order. If we change something, put any notes in for myself or Cody. And none of that happened from like Thursday before what everybody saw in the news to probably today. I'm not really been all that functional. But Cody, do you want to think we can go ahead and get started? I'm going to go ahead and retweet the podcast for anybody that hasn't seen it.
Yeah, this is episode 9.
Wow. Of season 2?
Right.
Really?
Season 2. Okay, here we go.
It didn't post a link. Sorry. I didn't want
like
that in
no
the recording.
one live.
But there's 2 people watching, so I'm like, wait, what the heck?
I mean, it should have.
Screw it. Let's roll with it.
Oh, no, it's not March yet. Well, it's...
Oh, I lied. There it is. Ignore me. I'm sorry, Cody.
Service.
No, this was not the service. This was me.
Hey everyone, and thank you for joining us. It has been a crazy week in Texas, and like we're gonna get to a lot of that because Texas is a mess. Matt was like a mess, and yeah. So you haven't heard from us. Last Tuesday, we put together pieces for a little episode of the podcast. So if you had missed the live broadcast, you get to hear a little bit of our live with Cody and Matt show that we're going to start doing once a week. We're going to do that once a week, but we put together a few of those pieces because Matt didn't have reliable electricity, and so we put that together. And then Thursday we just didn't do it because Texas was still a mess, and so yeah, that's craziness.
And Matt had not slept in a week.
Yeah,
at that point.
And then I had other things going on this weekend. So first of all, I did want to start this episode of the podcast off by thanking Matt, as always. He's always there to like listen to me. I wasn't really complaining, but I was sharing issues that were happening.
Stressed.
I was very stressed. This is my happy face and my my work personality. But things are a little bit better today. My cat got really sick, and so like it was kind of scary and like sudden, and so we're dealing with that, and hopefully things will be looking up, but we'll see. And I'll talk about that more later. But Matt, thank you for being there for me to
You're welcome. Well,
complain about it.
So I knew she was okay. It's one of those things. It looks really scary, and if you don't deal with it, it can become a problem. But you were dealing with it immediately, and there were some extra details I opted not to mention at the moment because it would have sent Cody through another level of stress. So I thought, I'm going to withhold that detail until he gets back from the vet tomorrow. And then, Did you were you reading that text going, what?
It's crazy because, so basically, my cat had some urinary tract issues, and some crystals that are in her bladder, that can happen. It happens a lot with cats. It's a common thing with cats. And so, but there was just that period of time where like uh, we'd been working outside all day and was really, tired and exhausted, and then come in, and then she's acting a little weird, but not completely strange because she's still running around. Like outwardly, you wouldn't know unless you were literally paying attention. Um, to her litter box. And so we were, and I noticed it. I'm very hyper vigilant about anything like that. So
Right.
thankfully I saw it. And
Oh, if you had it, you would have noticed within an hour or two. I promise, because that's how we noticed it. We heard the cat going to the litter box every 5 minutes. It started one evening, and we're like, and it started, and for Cody, of course, it started at night on what, Saturday night, I think.
Saturday night.
So
So
there's
vets are
the regular
closed.
vet's closed on Sunday, even where he's at.
And so all there was a hospital, and emergency things are very expensive, but it was
And
like whatever needs to be
And I'm
done,
like,
needs to be
Cody,
done.
it's gonna be okay. Like you're just I mean, so when he was describing it to me, my cat had the same issue, and it gets really ugly because what happens is your pet starts going constantly. And then when they're not going, you can still rub their bellies if you're, like it was our tiger cat too. You could like rub his belly, pick him up, touch him, and play with him, and then he would just run off, go to the bathroom, and come back and keep playing.
Yeah.
And and I think, did Ella do the bloody urine thing?
So yeah, she was
That's what
fine Saturday. We kind of noticed it Saturday morning a little bit. Justin said she was acting a little weird, and I was like, oh, she kind of always does that.
And
Um,
also, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. Since we're doing a live, we do see your comments. After we do the recording, we'll stay on so we can continue the actual live. But this is us actually recording the podcast that everybody would normally hear as well. So we can see your comments, and anything that we can't address during, we'll keep addressing after. Just quick announcement on that.
um, so yeah, she had slow urine spots all Saturday, and then Sunday morning, she had peed a lot more. So we're like, okay, well maybe it was just like some weird fluke kind of thing. But then yeah, we saw a little bit of blood, and then we are like, okay. Luckily, there was one vet in San Diego that was nearby that they are open 7 days a week. And so we got there. There was a line. Again, the only vet open, so of course there would be. But yeah, then we dropped her off, and obviously because of COVID thing, you can't like go back with them. And because there were so many people coming in, they were just taking them, boarding them in the back, and then when their time came up for their appointment, or they were next in line, they would be seen. So she had to stay there by herself for 4 hours. And me, like that breaks my heart. And also, like I was looking through the window, because I couldn't go in. So Justin went in, and I could see her. And through the window, you could see her big eyes. She was like, "What's going on? Why are you not here? And what is happening?"
Yeah,
So I
it's
was like,
very
"Ugh."
stressful. And of course, and I'm trying to convince Cody calmly that, so I already know what's happening. I've already recognized that very likely, if it's not a UTI, it's crystals. And she's Ella's 4 or 5, something
For
like that.
she'll be fine.
So, these are things that just happens. And all you do is pretty much a diet change. Like for our cat Simon, when we had him, we just put him on, we changed his food, and within 24, 48 hours, he's fine. And it just the worst part is it happens at night, and it tends, because that's when you tend to notice it, because your cat may not show outwardly signs. It's a little different, but it pretty much comes on in the span of a day, because
Yeah.
obviously you're not going to run your cat to the vet every time they pee a little weird, because sometimes it just happens. They're like humans. But whereas urinary stuff for us can take a couple days to really build and go wrong, for cats it can take 1 to 2 days if you don't. And after that, you really do have to deal with it. But I already knew Cody was going to deal with it. He's a very vigilant pet owner, and I also know how special Ella is. And but Saturday night. So his family is here in Texas too, and also experiencing what I'm going through. So he's stressed for them. And then Ella, and I'm like, Cody, I promise. Like, and I'm trying to be as like, without telling him that I already know it's probably crystals because of what he's describing to me. Because I didn't want him to Google that because untreated obviously can get really ugly, and I did not want Cody to see that. And I can like, so I didn't tell him that till the next day after. He's like, oh, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to go ahead and confess. So I didn't tell you because if you looked it up, I don't think Justin would have ever slept again.
Withholding information.
Well, I thought it was the right thing to do. If you were not going to take her to the vet, I would say, okay, this is what really could happen, and you should take her to the vet. But that's never a conversation I would ever have to have with you. In fact, I think it would be the other way around of you telling me I need to take my pet to the vet first. And I'm pretty on it usually. But that was how the week finished. That was the
Yeah, like a whole lot of crazy.
I don't think I'd even slept hardly at all when we were having that conversation. And I'm like, and I kept rereading it to make sure I was reading it correctly because I was so tired that I didn't, you don't want to make sure you say the wrong thing or come off insensitive. I mean, I didn't want to come across the wrong way because I really do care. And I just hadn't slept at all.
I know. So yeah, I'll talk more about all of that at a later time. But Matt was dealing with a lot of stuff. We'll get to that, the main bulk of that. But y'all were able to get some haircuts done despite all of
We
the.
did it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, last night. So we'd had enough of. So throughout the week, because we didn't have power intermittently, I would say in total maybe 3/4 to a day. We didn't, but it was inconsistent. It was not rolling at all. Like it just failed. So it would we would have it for 3 hours and be off for 5 or 6. So our house would go from 67 to like 50 to, or probably like low 50s, mid 50s when it would happen overnight. So you're layered up and under a couple blankets, and we're making sure we keep the cats warm and everything. And then the heat kicks on in your sleep or wherever you are, and you immediately start sweating because you're in layers. And we still have some of our winter clothes from living up north.
Yeah.
So 5 days of being hot and cold, and I was pretty sure the boil water thing was coming. So we filled up a ton of our containers with as much water as possible. So we would have had probably 4 or 5 days worth of water if we needed it.
Yeah.
And for drinking and for the pets, because we only have 2 cats, so they're luckily don't go through as much water as we did when we had a dog.
Yeah. For sure.
My gosh, like this all could have been so much worse at our house. So we were really fortunate. And then so when the boil water thing did come, we were already ahead of the game. So when you boil water, you have to boil it. You have to boil it for 1 to 3 minutes, and then you have to let it cool naturally. Move it to another container, and then boil something else. And you can only do that when you have power. So at that point, we hadn't lost power yet. So we're like, well, we've been really lucky. At this point, most of San Antonio is out, and for some reason, we still had it. And we're like, all right, well, let's just take advantage of this. So we charged everything we could. And then when the power started going out, we pretty much stopped sleeping. So when the power would go out, we would try to nap. And then as soon as it would come on, we would, strip down and try to get comfortable again and run through the house, put everything back on charge. Because if it goes out again, it may not come back. You have no idea when it's coming back. And because every day the weather that was supposed to be clear became 3 days of freezing rain. Like Wednesday or Thursday, it was not supposed. There was nothing on the forecast Monday or Tuesday, and then it snowed, and then it snowed all day.
I
So
mean,
Wednesday and Thursday were gross.
yeah.
And we know how to drive in ice and snow. So we also know that our current cars are not. My car's tires are probably fine for it, but it's rear wheel drive. So no, you don't. You either want front 4-wheel or all to drive in the snow for at best, if you can, if you have the option to.
Yeah.
And we have a Ford Escape that is front wheel drive, but I had an accident last month where some pavers fell off a truck, and I dodged most of them and the swerving vehicles, but I hit one of the pavers and bent a rim and blew a tire. So I didn't flip the truck, but I did blow a tire, and those tires were probably better rated for snow. So we can go anywhere anyway because I had to put our stock tires or original equipment tires on.
Yeah.
That I still had, that I luckily still kept in the garage. So we did have them, but you can't really drive in any. You can drive in some rain, but there was ice and snow. It was like a winter lasagna outside, and so we did not step out of the house. So we lost about half of our fridge and freezer. David several months ago had bought a backup gas burner that runs off little butane canisters that he was doing some kind of project that he wanted to try, so he needed it. Luckily, he had it. So the one night, I think day 3 of this, we're like, we lit a couple candles and lanterns and we still had water. So I washed everything I could, because you don't want stuff piling up in your kitchen during this because it can get really gross really quick. And this is how you get sick. This is how you start finding infestations. Things can go really south really quick if you don't know what you're doing. So David's chopping vegetables by candlelight. We're washing everything we can, drying everything we can by lantern and candle.
I
And
mean, just if you're just hearing that, it sounds so romantic.
oh yeah, so romantic. I mean, it was funny because it was one of those like 3-wick candles from Bed Bath and Beyond, so it smelled like delicious. So you just, what's happening around us, and then it's like this real comforting, like vanilla cookie smell. So we chopped every vegetable we could, and that would, was going to go bad, or anything that was going to go bad, and made a giant stew out of it. And we had some. Whenever we don't finish chilies and stuff like that, we'll freeze it so we can have it another day. And we happened to have that. So all we ate, we happened to have eaten that over the weekend. So we had a few things kind of there, like unintentionally. I was expecting 48 hours of really bad weather. Then when the power started going out, I was like, oh, this is going to last longer than 48 hours. And then, of course, the news reports started coming in of there's fires breaking out. People are dying because their houses aren't insulated, and water is failing. And yeah, so we did not take any risks.
Yeah.
So we packed up everything. We put it at the back of the garage because it was the coldest place we could find. And I put what was left of our ice down at the base of a cooler. So the bottom half of the cooler survived. The top half of the cooler did not. But the refrigerated stuff did manage to stay cold. And our neighbor dropped off a care package because we weren't able to grocery shop last week either.
Yeah.
So for a week, all we ate was soup and like a bowl of cereal per day. And only because last Saturday I woke up and I was like, we should go to Target. We should run to the store and just, extra this and extra that, and just to have. And I'm really glad we did, because we were a week and a half behind on grocery shopping already when this happened. So we didn't really eat much through the whole week, and we were trying to conserve everything because we don't know how long this is going to last. So to point out the severity of the situation, another couple days of this, we would not have been okay. Another couple days, we're buying plane tickets, and us and our cats are flying out because we can't leave them here. They will die. They will literally die in the cold or lack of power, or they have an automatic feeder that would get them through maybe 4 days. So, and we had a half a tank of gas in each car. I am 857 miles from El Paso. That's the west side of Texas. So I am in the south, where if you look at a map, Texas is literally the size of Europe. I could drive for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles and not hit a state line, or somewhere else that is connected to the main power grids of the country, that where we could fill up, and
stay warm.
We'd have to fill up at least one time, one and a half times to get out of the state. And we've driven out of the state. We drove here. And so, I mean, it was very close to becoming severe. And even though the weather cleared on Friday, you don't really know what the severity of the damage is until supply lines start restoring. I'm from Ohio. We've done the blizzard thing. And I grew up in Florida as well. So Hurricane Charlie hit the week I went to college. It destroyed my town and Orlando. And it was a mess, a disaster, flood damage everywhere for the first year I lived there. But you just sort of deal with it.
Yeah.
But there's a difference in South Texas. North Texas can get all 4 seasons. South Texas, generally, we might get 1 or 2 days a year where it's like 20. But that's like 1 or 2 days a year. The rest of the time when it's cold, it can be 30, 35. It might flurry a little. I think in 2017, it snowed like 3 inches one night, and it was gone by 10 a.m. the next day.
And I think also, where San Antonio is, there's even further South Texas, which again is hundreds of miles, that also got snow. We will come back and we're going to talk more specifically about kind of what Matt was dealing with and some of the causes that caused that for people across the state of Texas. That's coming up next. During this, Justin had to get the litter box that's behind me because Salem got put up. He had to get a broom. He was scrolling it across the ground. Hey, everybody. If you are here, hi. we're just recording an episode live, so you're getting to see. This is where Matt is going to put in a commercial.
Oh, is this what
This is
it
the
is?
commercial break.
This is where I like cry and take my shirt off and try to sell like some horrible product I would never use or something. Um, but during, to pick back up where we were, so like I said, we were very, very, very fortunate, but because we didn't know how long things would last. And if you know that you're going to leave your house, you're not going to wait till all your resources are gone before you go. So we're starting to think, well, what's going to happen? What are supply lines looking like? Do we need to go? Do we need to stay? And everything is shut down. Everything's done. So luckily, things have restored. We slipped into Target early Saturday to see kind of what the status of everything was, and our boil water advisory here in the south part of San Antonio popped out or came off yesterday around 11 in the morning, and then the north side of San Antonio is already restored. So things are improving rapidly, but there's a lot of people that lost power and that still don't have it because their house was damaged by their water lines rupturing. I'm sure if you've seen BuzzFeed or any of the news reports, it really does look like that. I think a 50 apartment building, like a building of a complex, collapsed because there wasn't enough. The firemen couldn't do anything about it. Houses have just been burning because they were frozen. The lines were frozen. And sometimes your lines freeze, and other times they will completely rupture. So what you do is you leave water dripping. It keeps it just kind of moving so it doesn't become stagnant and freeze in the line. So what
Yeah.
happens when water freezes? It expands. It blows pipes. Some of the houses here are very old. And it's hard to, so San Antonio is the seventh largest city in the country. It's hard, I know it might be hard to imagine like how such a huge city could have be that far behind, but it's also an older city. So there are historic areas. There are areas that don't have updated piping, and ours are underground in our neighborhood. Our house was built in 2016. So by sheer luck, it was not a skill on our part that we still had water. It was complete
Yeah.
luck of construction because our construction method here was not normal. And we didn't plan that either. They just showed us how they built the house. And, I grew up in South Florida. Things aren't really, your pipes a lot of times are exposed. And even if
Yeah.
they're not that far under to protect them.
Well, and that's a thing, and throughout the state of Texas. I mean, so first of all, this is like what people would be calling like a once in a generation storm.
Yeah,
Like,
I've heard
so
that
it
many
is
times in my life, by the way.
something of this scale throughout the entire state of Texas is extremely rare. Um,
Yes.
and even looking like at people were bringing up the topic of global warming and different things like that. And while I think that's important to keep in mind, there's not any evidence to show that global warming necessarily causes colder temperatures like this. There could be extreme fluctuation in temperatures. Um, and so that is a point that I have heard people talking about, because more than likely you're going to see warming of temperatures. But with that being said, in Texas, a lot of construction building, like pipes, you were seeing a lot of, like you were talking about, a lot of people's pipes bursting. But a lot of construction is done where pipes are built on the outside of homes, like
Yeah,
outside walls.
and it's not a big deal because
Yeah.
even if it gets cold, it doesn't stay that way for an extreme. Our temperature, our winters can get cold and uncomfortable. So you might have 2 or 3 weeks where it's 35, 40 degrees and gray and rainy outside. And yes, to live in, that can be really miserable to go 3 or 4 weeks without seeing the sun. But that's
Not a
not cold
week.
enough. Yeah, it's not cold enough to freeze your pipes and ruin your day. You can
I
go
mean,
inside and take a hot shower or
it
something,
it was so cold in San Angelo that there was like a pond that froze over, and so that would be extremely rare. Like you would get some surface area freezing on ponds, obviously, because it's like a handful of days. But it was so cold, it was frozen enough that they were playing hockey on it,
which
and so
don't
that is
ever do.
insane.
Don't ever do. I mean, I know a lot of people, you see it on the news and stuff like that. If you do not understand why you shouldn't do that, you can fall through ice and you will drown. People die of shock hypothermia when you fall through the water and it gets so cold. And you don't just fight your way out. Your muscles literally contract and seize. And if you're not properly prepared to be in that kind of water, this isn't like the polar bear plunge when you prepared for it and there's people around you to help if you get in trouble and you're
Yeah.
hopping right out. If you just fall in every time you try to climb yourself out, the ice will keep breaking because your weight is going to crush it and break it down.
Yeah.
And
Look,
the more you fight, the more energy you use, and the more likely that you will die. If you ever saw that show Rescue 911, they did a couple of episodes on it.
yeah.
Absolutely accurate. It is absolutely like that because it's generally, even if it looks frozen over, it's very rarely more than a quarter of an inch. It looks solid, but you will go right through it.
Yeah.
And
Luckily
such a
in
bad
this
idea.
luckily in this instance, it wasn't a deep pond. It was like you
Right.
would stand in it.
Right, like those shallow ponds where it's only like a couple of inches because they're like
Yeah.
displays or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the concrete is also super cold, so it helps keep it. So it's cold from the top and bottom. But
But
typically, like retention ponds, they're deeper.
yeah.
So the ground below, like the fish and everything, are still swimming along below. They're fine, but only the surface is frozen.
But that's how cold it was, though. That something that
Yeah.
normally doesn't freeze
We
froze that
saw a
much.
lot. And so what was happening here was the equipment that they used to switch around. They were saying that it was all frozen, so they couldn't even move it. So there was no rolling blackouts. I don't know if that was actually the intention or if it was just PR, but that didn't happen. So apparently they shut down the power because we were minutes from frying our actual grid. So the
Yeah.
Texas grid is separate from the east and west parts of the country because Texas is gonna Texas, y'all. And because of that, if they had shut down the grid, I think some 26 million people live here. It would have been like a Mad Max situation. So 26 million people here, it would have made Katrina look like nothing because the entire state would have, I mean, the amount of destruction and death we would have seen would have been,
Yeah.
it would have been like historic war level amounts of death.
Well, and the thing, so since Texas has its own grid essentially, and it controls about 90% of Texas, so there's certain areas in the Panhandle and like certain parts in Western Texas, El Paso area, that are not served by the Texas grid. So the way it's set up, it's not an easy option to bring in electricity from the Western and Eastern grids. There's portions of that can happen because there are connections in Oklahoma, Louisiana, I believe, and then in Mexico. But the amount of electricity shared between those lines on a regular basis is not very much at all in the big picture of things. So the amount of electricity to come in, the system is not set up to do that. And I was seeing a lot of people, talking about that. And the Texas
you
grid,
guys were probably seeing more than we were because we couldn't. I was dependent on the news and Twitter, and so of course, and I knew we were okay, so we were focused on trying to find people that weren't okay and make sure, do you need a shower? Do you need food? Like, what do you need? And because, yeah, we were okay. We had some stuff. We were gonna be all right, but it was, I think, Thursday or Friday night before I actually sat down and ate. Like, our power came back Thursday night and stayed on. After that, it stayed on. But it wasn't until Saturday, I think, that we actually started like comfortably plugging a few things back in. And, just because even though the roads were clear, you can overwhelm a system and crash it again because you don't know. So we were like, well, we've been dealing with this thus far. If you saw my Twitter, I posted what I looked like Thursday morning versus what I looked like Saturday. After Saturday was right after I was sitting in the driveway waiting for David. He was, before we went to Target. So I drank what I needed and I ate what I barely needed. And of course, every time the power went off, we'd try to sleep. But as soon as it came on, we were up. And of course, we couldn't sleep anyway because something would flip on and scare us because, all the lights came on in the middle of the night once. And Luna was sleeping on her. They have a cat tower. She was sleeping on the top rung of it. And I guess the lights on our loft had gone off sometime earlier in the day, and I forgot about it. And we had gone through we tried to remember to go and turn off everything we could. And because all sorts of things were malfunctioning because they were constantly getting turned off, on and off. So we had to properly shut down and reset a bunch of things. And it was really funny. So all the lights popped on and I heard the cats jump and I was like half asleep in bed and they popped on and I immediately get up and throw off my 4 blankets and I go out and Luna's eyes are like the size of dinner plates. She's not even moving. She's just laying on her side on the top of her tower. Like
what is going on?
Like, what the hell is this?
I think that's one thing, that you were saying about having not turning everything on at once. And a lot of that is to help the grid not
Right.
be overwhelmed,
And also
because it is a
we
slow
kept it down to the
process.
60s. We
Yeah.
try to keep it as cool as possible. And so I really struggle. One of the reasons we moved to Texas was because I have a lot of problems with my hands and feet. Like when I get cold, I can hardly flex my hands at all. Like it's miserable, and I've lived with it for a very long time. But it obviously I'm getting older. You know, it's worse at 34 than it was at 30, than 25 and 20. So as it's gotten really cold, um, this whole week was a challenge, you know, because once it gets that way, the only relief I have for it is to wrap it and let it warm up, put my hand between my thighs and let it warm up, or run it under warm water until the pain stops. And most of the time I can live with it, but when you're sitting here for an undetermined amount of time, you have to make a plan. So there was other things going on outside of this, and luckily one of our neighbors on Thursday, she called my cell phone, and she is like team mom. She's a retired school teacher, and she's like, "Oh honey, you okay?" And she the attitude it takes to have taught that it must have taken to teach fourth graders for 35 years, um it she's just never endingly positive and wonderful to us, and has been since the day we moved in. Well, she did almost call the police on us on the first night. She thought we were squatters in the house, but it's okay. We worked it out. But she dropped off a care package of random little things, and she used
It's
to
so
take care of
sweet.
her mother, who had dementia. And she'd passed in 2020, and not COVID. She just kind of was able to pass peacefully at home. And but she had tons of things that she had bought because her mom liked certain things, so she would get them in bulk, so that to minimize the trips, to minimize leaving her mom alone for long periods of time. So she's like, I have tons of stuff that I will not touch, because she didn't like them, but they were things that David or me, I have the weird taste. So she dropped off a couple things, and she dropped off a gallon bag of coffee for us. And I didn't think to ask what kind it was, because it was just so nice of her to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't think the kind of coffee that a teacher would drink to keep themselves energized for a day of fourth graders. Sir, I drank that coffee, and I could have painted the house, resurfaced the road. I could have painted every house in the neighborhood in probably 3 hours. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa. um, so it was an experience. I also could not go get my meds, and my meds actually ran out Monday. So I was able to get them Sunday. We were finally able to drive over to CVS, because everything else had lines. We only popped over to Target to look at the situation to see okay, how bad is this?
Yeah.
And yeah, actually Friday afternoon, I guess CVS had opened in our town on Friday. When they called me, and the girl, the pharmacy tech, I felt bad. I'm sure she's exhausted, but she's like, "You have meds here, and they've been here for a week." I'm like, "Yeah, I haven't showered, left my house. I have no clothes," because we hadn't done laundry either. Normally do laundry on the weekends, and we opted not to because we didn't know how severe it was going to be. And we're like, well, it's not, just in case. And because we thought 48 hours, we can wait. It's whatever. So it ended up being we're a week and a half behind on literally everything. So she's like, "Are you coming to get your meds?" And I'm like, no, I'll be there probably Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to need a minute. And she's like, fine. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm gross. But we were literally out of most of our clothes at that point, and I had showered once in a week. So I was, rocking day 4 hair and this before I shaved it.
Yeah.
And so was David, whose hair is like twice as long as mine was.
Thankfully,
And
you got the haircuts in yesterday.
yeah, I
This
cut his hair
weekend.
yesterday, and it looks, it was last night, and I think it looks pretty good. But
You said he kept moving now,
he kept
which you
freaking
don't
moving.
move.
No, don't move. He was moving to help me, but it was like, stop moving, I'll move myself. But yeah, so I would encourage everybody that if you know somebody that doesn't have water still or power, if their house is damaged, direct them either to Comacast, to me, to the state website. There is tons of relief available. Tons of stores are doing lots of things to help. Lots of people are doing things to help. Any GoFundMe's that you know about that are, if you know they're legitimate, just send them to us. I don't have a problem retweeting that and signal boosting. I just want to make sure, we're retweeting legitimate ones, because sometimes people try to profit off of disasters and take away from people who really do need the help. So there are there are places, San Antonio is still doing bulk water distribution, where you bring your own containers, but up to 5 gallons per household at a time that you can go get, and then that can be enough to have drinking water for a couple days, or well, however, depending how many people are in your house.
Yeah.
And if you need power, place now it is warming up. It's by Sunday and Monday it was like 70 again.
Y'all are gonna
And
be 90s like in a week.
right, like, and trying to explain to people that this isn't about a little bit of winter. When we first moved here, I lived in PA for 6 years. I was so used to the cold again that even though my hands hurt, I know I'm not really cold. That the first year it was like 40 degrees and I walked over to the mailbox and didn't even think about it,
Yeah, I mean,
because you get used to it. But I've now lived here in Texas for 5 years. So there's people here that have never seen snow, they've never seen ice,
yeah, I was gonna say, like, when we're talking about, like, well, we're gonna talk about this in another episode about like infrastructure and electric grid, water grid,
yeah.
and all of that that's involved.
I
But
thought that was a really good. Cody texted me, I think like Wednesday, was, what do you think about doing an infrastructure episode where we talk about how things work? And I've learned I don't really know how things work. I didn't know the Texas infrastructure was so frail. Most cities, yes, they're a bit outdated because they're huge cities.
well,
You can't update a whole city in 6 months.
yeah,
But
I think there's like also like a lot of misconceptions about things,
yes,
because I don't want to go too much, but Texas having its own grid is not necessarily a negative. There's other things around it that make it negative, because you look at California. California's infrastructure probably is equal to what Texas is. uh, you know so we'll go into that in a future episode. um, but yeah, I thankfully, Matt,
I
you
posted a before and after picture. I took it down yesterday because every time I saw it, I was like, ugh. I mean, I literally look resurrected. So on Thursday, I took a picture after I woke up and I'm dehydrated. I've been sweating and freezing for at that point a week. And then Thursday, before this all really got started, I got to the doctor's. It was 25 degrees outside then and pouring down rain. And I didn't want to move my doctor's appointment. So I was like, well, it's fine, whatever. Nothing's frozen to the ground yet. Let's get this over with. And, it was not my best day at the doctor. And so there was that. And it just led right into the weekend. And still, we had a much better week than a lot of Texas because we have that experience of living in the north and with actual natural disasters. We are aware. And so Texas, we don't have salt trucks here. Like, so
yeah
up north, of course, you salt the roads. Your house is winterized. Like, I don't remember really losing power up north, except when a tree came down on a line one afternoon and took out power to the borough I lived in.
Yeah, and
But that was
like
it.
a lot of people might be surprised about that, but again, there's like financial
Right.
considerations done with that,
Because why would
because
you keep it's only for a day or two a year usually, so you would not purchase enough salt trucks to plow and run a city for 48 hours. Like, that's ridiculous. It's
yeah,
quicker and easier to shut it down, everybody stay home, and
yeah,
it is always in the weather. We did know the weather was coming.
yeah,
We did know Sunday and Monday would be ugly. We all knew, but we did not expect 3 extra days of freezing rain and then a whole 4th day of snow. And then of course the power going out was the end of it. So, we've had, I think 30 plus people have died. People were dying in their homes of hypothermia. They were being found under blankets. A child died in Houston. There were several deaths
yeah.
in Houston. And then, we talked about the apartment fire here. So there is a lot happening and a lot still happening because, it takes longer than 48 hours to recover from those
I
things.
think when we're talking about the scope of it and it being once in a generation, like the area where my family is, the amount of snow, ice, etc., that they've gotten in the last, basically, I guess this winter, it's the most since like the early 70s. So that's, dozens and dozens
Right.
of
Now, our
years.
generation has lived through so many once in a lifetime events that I'm like, okay, I I've had enough. Like, let's not now.
But that
You know,
goes to the fluctuation
right.
of
So,
global warming,
a
but
lot
that's
of people don't
another.
understand that climate, and we'll go into that later, but climate and weather are not the same thing. Like, they're in the same realm, but they do not mean they are not interchangeable. So, like Texas has a warm climate, but we had rough winter weather for a week. That's like the easiest way I can think about
Yeah.
it. So, but it we are on the road to recovery, but like I said, if you see anything on Twitter, you see anything in the news redirecting or providing updates, because you guys are probably all seeing updates before we were. And at some point I just had to stop watching it because it's not helping. I'm literally sitting there freezing, trying to keep the cat warm and playing free cell on my cell phone. I'm really good at that game now, by the way. I've
You're an
gotten really
expert.
good at it in the last couple months. I'm like level
Um,
100 on it, by the way.
didn't even know it
Yeah.
went that far.
Yeah,
Um,
me either.
as Matt was saying, you can message him at right there on the screen.
Yeah.
If you're listening to that podcast episode, though, it's I'm Poetic AF. I'm at Cody Rodriguez. So you can message us or whatever. As always, I'm glad you survived.
Yeah, Cody was like, "Are you okay?" I appreciate. I got so many text messages, Snapchats, direct messages, and I really appreciated them. I don't think you really realize the impact you have on people's lives, and I don't think I realized. I mean, I know like I play around on. I'm really playful on Twitter, but you don't really. I don't really equate that to like uh more substantial connection than what it is, because you don't really know what the other people perceive that as, and I don't really focus on how other people perceive me, obviously based on how I write. um but I got so many messages from so many people checking in on us, offering us help, and I really appreciated it. Now nothing could have been delivered anyway unless you could literally like we're a paratrooper. But yeah. But everybody, it really was appreciated, and I really appreciated the offers to let David and myself and our cats come to you. And if we could have gotten there, it was getting close that we were going to be accepting those
You should
offers.
have just come here.
Oh yeah, because you locked me in your garage for 2 weeks to quarantine.
It's true. It's true. But remember,
But you would
we
have
were
been safe.
delayed. We were delayed doing a live or something like last 2 weeks ago, I think, and that was because I was knitting a scarf to send to my niece overnight to get it to Texas before this. It did make it. They did get to wear it,
I'm
but it was
so
so
happy
cold.
they were
It
okay.
was so
So
cold you couldn't
yeah,
play in the
one of the
snow.
things we were checking on is, we have other mutuals here, and you have people that you have to think we have an elderly population, people retire to the south, so it's very much, I know, are you okay, but is your family okay? Is your elderly parents that live in the city, do you need me to go drop off something when the weather clears? As soon as it's clear, I got 2 hours, I can run out and drop off water and whatever. Do they need to come here and take a shower? I can wear a mask and let them go do their thing and drive them home, because hygiene is very important, and it's very easy to become sick in something like this. People become sick after the hurricanes and major natural disasters because they don't you're not really focused on having clean hair, when you've been through hell. It's true. But things like, old food or trash that you can't get rid of, it could become a source of a problem, and it's something that people don't think of. We couldn't even like really get out the door. Like our trash cans are around the side of the house. Our whole driveway was iced over. It is very easy to fall and hurt yourself. This is not the week to have an accident. So we piled up everything and we put it in the garage because the garage was ice cold. Um, and our bedroom is right above our garage. So we only slept in our bedroom when we had to. We napped on the couch. But David is 6'3" and I am 5'10". We both cannot sleep on the couch, and we don't have an air mattress.
Yeah.
So, and we were trying to be in the same room because the cats would come sleep on us because they would get cold. So we would try to wrap them up with us to keep them warm. I mean, it made for really cute pictures, but it was actually, it's like, oh, this is super cute, but it's actually a serious situation.
Remember, it's just like Instagram. You can see it and it looks amazing, but the reality behind it is not there.
That's why I always post, like, I'm sorry to kill the moment for this picture, but this is what's really happening.
I never do that.
But yeah, that's it.
Again, remind you, if you need help, if you know someone who needs help, or you have an organization that is helping people, and you want us to put it out there into the world, you can message either of us. And yay, thank you for joining us again for this episode. And Matt, I'm glad that you made it through, and we're back on our regular schedule.
Yes, and of course, like we said earlier, you can check us out at ComaCast. and also wherever you get your podcast from, don't please leave a review or rate it. It does help it when you do that. It helps it get seen by everybody else. And also, if you have any feedback or commentary, please don't hesitate to leave it or message me or Cody, or leave it here, ask questions, or if there's a topic you want us to talk about, we're always happy to look at it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's done.
Yay! So that's
everybody.
typically what happens. So now we're just on live, but so that's typically what happens. And Cody, we did so good because usually the intro, it's usually 4 or 5 times because.
Well, the secret is that y'all now know, but no one else will know unless you watch this live. Is the intro is pre-recorded and the out is pre-recorded.
Yes. We did change it periodically. Now, last season we did not do that.
We did
last
it
season
live
we did it
every time.
Yeah, so it would take several times because something would go wrong. Or I think one time one of us started talking and I sneezed, and Cody hit record and I sneezed. And then, just that kind of stuff. And
we're more professional now.
Yeah, we're like totes professional.
So we have about 9 minutes left that we're going to stay on and chat with y'all. So if anybody has any questions, we'll answer them now.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. It was weird not doing anything for a week because I couldn't. So I sat and played Final Fantasy 14 when I could. If any of y'all play, let me know. I will play with you. I am not very good. It's the first MMO I've ever played. But hell, we'll figure it out together. But yeah, like Cody said before we got going, if you weren't listening, we're going to do one completely live a week. That is, you'll be able to rewatch it, but it won't be part of the podcast. And then we'll do something like this where either we do record it live or record the podcast and maybe pop on, as needed. But it's nice to see everybody. And it was really, the messages I got were really amazing. And it was really nice. It made me feel really good. My family, even a couple of my family members made sure I still had a pulse. But that's about it. The rest couldn't be bothered. So I was like, well, oh well. But I did not hear back from the doctor yet because my doctor's offices were closed. But yeah, I actually I'm going to mention it now and we're going to do a future episode on it. So what I wanted to talk about was, so I learned I have a family history of lupus, and that's also what I was checked for because the doctor thinks it might have actually been what's causing a lot of my hand issues and my hand foot issues and a lot of other things that I live with. And you can't see it on live because I've been inside all week, but I have a butterfly rash on my face, which I always thought was sunburn. And I learned I have a family history of it because I called an aunt for help. One of the aunts had actually asked if I was still alive. And she was also diagnosed with it 6-8 months ago. And she had also been experiencing symptoms since her early 20s. Mine probably started at end of high school, my late teens, early 20s when they started kind of ramping up. But I got sunburned in 2014. Butterfly rash is something that lupus or autoimmune patients get. It's usually within 2 or 3 different diseases, but they're all autoimmune. They get it, and it can be brought out by the sunlight. So like a sunburn or being outside will highlight it. So I always had it like one section here, and I thought it was just a sunburn, and it's not. And the doctor's pretty sure that's what I have, and I'll end up having to be treated for it anyway. But that's okay because it's good because I've already been living with these symptoms. So it'd be great to have something to calm everything down. My hair loss has also been part of it. I'm not going to post the pictures here because I think it's a little triggering for people to see. But Cody has seen the before and after of when I went on the finasteride, and it was rough. Large chunks of my skull are just there, and there's no reason for it. It's just really
after
stressful.
It's amazing.
The after is looking a lot better. Things are getting better there, but the main symptoms are that most people live with are joint pain and fatigue. Those are the 2 biggest ones that you have. And we always talk about how I don't sleep a lot, but even when I sleep a lot or normally, I'm still tired. Even now, I feel a level of exhaustion that if I can keep it to a 3 or 4 or below, I can usually function for my day. But it makes work really hard. It makes going to a 9 to 5 job all day really hard. And the joint pain is rough because obviously I've known for a long time that I need to exercise and it helps make me feel better. I didn't realize why.
Mhm.
So when I work out all the time, it stops it. But lupus is an autoimmune disease that you attack your own body. And while I was at the doctor's, I was trying to show him my sunburn, because I was like, because normally I treat it with anti-redness creams and wear moisturizer with sunblock in it. And so I can keep it almost not even visible. But if I wash my face or I walk outside, it starts to like. So that day I had not worn anything. I was just I washed my face, wore my mask, and that was it. Because I wanted to show it to him, and my
Yeah.
whole face was red. It's red. Like I have a full rash right across my cheeks.
Well, like I
And
was telling Matt, I never noticed it because
right.
on video, it doesn't have the full quality of seeing someone in person or a photo.
Correct.
So I
You can
never
kind of see it
really,
a little bit on my one cheek,
yeah,
but
you
that's
see it
it.
now.
And if you
Now
didn't
that I
know what you were
know,
looking for,
yeah, you
you
wouldn't
wouldn't even
know.
see it because I'm really self-conscious of it. And I was like, I'm so pale that I thought, well, yeah, I did it. I finally got a sunburn. And
Well,
and it was
when you come to San Diego, you will get a sunburn. I'm just gonna
I always
so
wear
wear your
sunscreen.
sunscreen.
So I always wear sunscreen and I always wear a hat. And the doctor said I probably have not felt as bad as I could because most of my life I've tried to exercise and take
Mm.
care of myself, stay away from things that like break you down. But while I was at the doctor's office, we noticed that my liver numbers were off. They're normal for my age, but they shouldn't be off because I eat. And we talked before about how I have to stay on like a low animal fat diet and I eat seafood and vegetarian. Well, one of the reasons now is that it looks like I haven't been, even though I had been for 2 months before this test was even taken. And when your body attacks, it's called a flare up. So there's been times I've been hospitalized before for this, and we didn't even think about it. We just thought it was exhaustion because it mimics exhaustion because
Mhm.
I am exhausted. And I always worked a lot. I've been a student and had high stress jobs. So it's very easy to totally explain away all those symptoms. But there's
Yeah.
other symptoms I have that I just thought, oh, well, everybody gets a canker sore. Well, I get them in waves. If I get one, I get six. And then I have to live with it for 2 or 3 weeks. And then they all go away and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And it usually coincides with like a swollen gland in my neck and my hair shedding out and then me feeling really, really tired. So it's made sometimes even our recordings have been delayed because I'm like, Cody, I'm so sorry I fell asleep. And I can control it if I know I have to get up and run around and like power through it. But we have absolutely been like, Cody, we have to wait an hour. I'm so tired because it can hit me out of nowhere. So, but I just want to share a little bit about that. We're going to do an episode on that later, even no matter what happens or what they decide to treat me for, because
Yeah.
I think it's important to discuss illnesses where people say that you don't look sick, but you are sick, and the importance of understanding and awareness, I think, is a good way to
Yeah.
put it, I think. But that's all I've got, Cody.
I think it's been good. Glad everyone joined us. This episode will be posted for release on tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday. It'll be released tomorrow or tonight at midnight, I guess.
Yay.
So be sure, even if you were here, tune into the podcast episode, please. Thank you.
Do what David does. He starts it and presses play and walks away. And I'm like, oh.
I mean,
I appreciate the honesty, though. He doesn't.
Sure, maybe everyone can open it up on all podcasts. Just let it play. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. We hope all of you enjoyed this little live stream, and we will see you next time we do a live. We're gonna work out a schedule again. We're gonna do a live stream and then a one late night stream. So we'll do 2 streams a week, and then this was just like specials. These are going to be at random, not a set time. And if you happen to catch us, lucky you. But thanks for joining everybody.